Alright. We are really starting to build up to the grand finale here in episode 11 of season 2 of the Eminence in Shadow. But goddamn, Rose probably had her mental really shattered in this one. Hello, and welcome back. Today we are indeed looking over the newest episode of the Eminence in Shadow. And you know what? I overall enjoyed this episode quite a bit. The last episode was very much a setup episode, and it felt a bit slow at times, but this one, we really ramped things up slowly, and of course we had the big reveal of this artifact at the end, and setting now up the boss fight and the final showdown in the last episode of the season, next Wednesday. As usual, the Eminence in Shadow in this episode blends the comedy and the action and the shenanigans very well together, but what I want to talk about first is going to be Rose. Of course, understandably, Rose is the main focal point of this arc, right? It is in the Oriana Kingdom, she's the princess, of course, and everything that has been happening around her has been interesting overall. In this episode, I did like a lot of the revelations we got, and a lot of the developments story-wise. First of all, I want to mention that I did like them including this quick comment from Rose when she's talking with herself, I think, where she says that she didn't, just want to save her mother for her own sake, but because she killed her father and this entire thing, she wanted to save her mother for her father's sake, because clearly her father loved his wife, her mother, very much, and because of that, Rose probably, additionally to wanting to save her herself, wants to do it for her father, maybe trying to make up for what she did to him, and trying to maybe atone for her sins in a way. Of course, that is me extrapolating a lot of meaning from a simple comment, but that's what it felt like they were going with that. Now, of course, outside of this, after this, we quickly get Rose having her mental absolutely shattered as Shadow, instead of killing her, as Rose thinks, brings her to see the truth, so to speak, and just brings her outside the window so that they can see her mother and perv asshat get it on and do some adult activities. Understandably, Rose is having a hard time dealing with this, as she ends up puking and passing out here from disgust in many ways, I can imagine. This, of course, as Shadow is in the middle of doing his monologue, but we will get back to that soon. Now, of course, as Rose is dealing with this, she's having a hard time, right? Even as she wakes up after, this completely sort of shatters her whole sense of mission, right? Like, what is she doing? Why is she doing these things? Like, what's the point anymore? Even as she finds Cid playing the piano on her balcony. Also, like, how did Cid get the piano up there? Good question, Rose. Not that she would think to ask that, but anyway. She just is completely defeated, right? Feeling missionless, purposeless, like what is this all for? Why can't I just go back to the good times? Really having a tough time mentally, understandably, and just wants to run away with Cid to a faraway land and live happily ever after, eloping basically. But of course, Cid, or Shadow, doing his whole monologue, as usual, gets Rose to realize, what really matters, what she should do, and what she can do in this time, at this point, and that apparently gives her some new resolve of, okay, this is what I have to do. I have to take this ring that he gave me, even though he just dropped it, of course, by accident, and, let's say, respect or fulfill his love for me by doing what's right, to atone for my sins and everything wrong I have done. So Cid doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, as usual. And this, of course, ends up with Rose having this showdown with the perv asshat at the wedding, where she says no at the altar. How dramatic. Before, of course, everything goes to hell right after. But the story of Rose, specifically in this episode, I thought was like, okay. I did again like how they finally showed Rose, okay, this is actually how your mother is like. R.I.P. to her and Paras, by the way. Rest in pieces. And of course, I understand that she is likely to have a lot of mental trauma, PTSD, and whatever else in the future after this. But I like them showing her really struggling with this and having this sort of breakdown. And at the point where she was her lowest, when she wanted to give up and just run away, she finds her resolve once again, or renews her resolve to do what she believes to be right. Which is coincidentally very different to what Cid thinks she is going to do, as usual. Now, as we only have one episode left, I do hope that we end the season with really seeing Rose, let's say, fulfill this arc she is on of finding what really matters to her, what is really important to her, and her carving a path for herself into the future, being the new ruler of Oriana, etc., as her father wanted her to be, and having that turn out in a satisfying way to end off this story arc and the season. I do also hope we get to see her actually fight and have some meaningful impact in the boss showdown next episode, and not just having Shadow do everything and be the star. But of course, I do want Shadow to kick ass because it's very fun to see. But yeah, I do just hope that Rose gets a very satisfying ending to this arc and grows as a character, as a person, and we get to see a new face to her, so to speak, moving forward into the next seasons of this show, which hopefully will come. Outside of Rose, though, do have many other things in this episode to dissect. First of all, I have to just make quick mention of the comedic elements, as always in the Eminence in Shadow. Just starting with Cid being trapped between Epsilon and this maid girl, which I forget the name of. Him literally not being able to get his hand out because this maid is holding it so tightly. He replaces himself with a doll with his clothes on and just plays the piano in his underwear. And then gets dressed, of course, after the fact. And after that, just the entire section of Cid casually walking, but then being shown to walk literally on the wall. And of course, it wouldn't be an episode with Epsilon without having a chest comment. And once again, Cid just marveling at the skill involved of what Epsilon is doing with her chest, commenting like, I must, commend you at this high level you have reached. Basically talking about Epsilon's chest like she has sort of gotten it max level, max buffs, max gear, and having like a maxed out character, so to speak. It's like, okay, dude, of course. Even just Cid's comments throughout the episode, for example, oh no, this has turned from an isekai story to a soap opera, how do I get this back to the 6 p.m. time slot? It's like, god damn it, Cid. You are just so goofy in all the right ways. Again, as always, I really just appreciate the comedic elements, and they often give a nice reprieve to the sometimes, let's say, more heavier content in each episode. So it was enjoyable. Now, this leads me further on to talking quickly about Cid and his seeming indifference or lack of empathy or lack of anything really other than his interest in being the Eminence in Shadow. Now, to me, initially, it did definitely feel like, okay, Cid doesn't really care, right? He doesn't really have empathy. He doesn't really care about Rose, for example, or anyone for that matter, other than his mission of being the Eminence in Shadow and creating these chuny stories where he himself is the main character. And you see this when he brings Rose to see what her mother and Perv is doing in the bedroom and the whole realization, but doing it in such a nonchalant way, him having this pre-planned monologue of what he's going to say and, how he's going to get Rose to really be this tyrant that he can then overthrow eventually, all fitting into his neat storyline, right? But then having to stop as Rose passes out after barfing up everything and more, and then being like, oh, right, yeah, I guess this is kind of hard on you. Yeah, sorry about that. And this being really consistent with just everything he does, which time and time again seems to be really indifferent, right? It really seems like he doesn't ever care about anyone but himself. But that does fit in with his character, right? It's not like he's doing this out of malevolence or doing this for some sort of evil purpose or him being like a bad guy per se. It's just that as he tells Rose when he is doing the whole piano piece with her and talking about priorities and what really matters in life, he talks about himself, that he has and has had one dream his entire life, which is being the Eminence in Shadow, of course. And everything that matters to him is being the Eminence in Shadow. Like, nothing else matters. Everything else I have just thrown away doesn't matter. So when Cid does all these things, it's not that he is being a bad guy per se. Of course, it might seem like he is, but he just is indifferent. He just does all these things and can seem like an asshole and seem like a uncaring douche, but it's not that he's doing it for any sort of evil purpose or just being a dick for being a dick's sake. He just doesn't understand or doesn't realize or doesn't take the time to consider other people's feelings or how other people might perceive or think about things or feel about things, because everything that matters to him is being the Eminence in Shadow, and anything that doesn't fit in that purview or in that mission, he doesn't consider, like he just doesn't conceptualize, he doesn't care about, because it's not part of his mission. And that is what ends with him being this sort of person and doing these sort of things he does, and how he does often seem very dickish or indifferent about a lot of other characters' problems and plights and struggles. In this episode, Rose's, clearly. This, of course, has meant that many people, or at least some people, I would say a decent subsection of the viewers of this show, have ended up really disliking Cid because of these character traits. I don't, really, because I understand why he is the way he is, and it fits well with the show and his character and everything else, but I can definitely understand why people would have an issue with this, and wanting him to be more of a, let's say, proper altruistic main character, being more caring and empathetic, but with the show it fits quite well. So to me, all Gucci. As a side note, this also fits well in with a quick scene we get with Cid and Epsilon in the sauna, where Cid, is completely indifferent to Epsilon being completely nude in the sauna with him, right? Doesn't even bat an eye, doesn't even look at her, even though she is butt naked, whatever else. And this isn't really because he is like a Chad or he is like confident with women or anything. It's just that, again, he doesn't care. Like, nothing but being the Eminence in Shadow matters to him. So it doesn't matter if he has like 10 of the Shadow Garden girls butt naked in the sauna, because that doesn't matter to him because it doesn't interact with his mission to be the Eminence in Shadow, so he doesn't think about it. It's just not in his mind, because he has that laser focus of this matters, everything else doesn't. Now, of course, this also clashes with the understanding that he is clueless about how things actually work and what Shadow Garden actually is and everything else, but still, in his mind, it makes sense, right? And speaking of not really getting things, yes, we have to quickly talk about Cid and him once again having the very standard every episode misunderstandings. First of all, with the black rose comment to Epsilon, where he just thinks that he wants to see some black roses, thinking it is just some flowers, right? While Epsilon, of course, being like, what? No, that's too dangerous. But if you say so, Lord Shadow, then, of course, that must be the right thing to do. Of course, her thinking of the actual black rose weapon or artifact that we see turned on at the end of the episode. And the same with Rose and Cid having this interaction with the piano play, and Rose thinking he's talking about, eternal love between them and whatever else, or true love, all that, while Cid is, of course, thinking the whole tyrant leader story arc in his head. But no matter how many times he has these misunderstandings with everyone in this world except himself, things still keep trundling along because that's the show, But I don't know, sometimes I feel it's a bit much, or it gets a bit old, but I still enjoy it just because it always, flows so well and it fits so well with a lot of the humoristic elements, and the misunderstandings, of course, in the end always end up being positive, so it's fine. Now, of course, I will have to talk a slight bit about Rose's mom and Mr. Asshat here, because, they both meet their fitting end at the end of the episode. Very quick, but fair enough. I get why Mordred decapitated the mother too, because she is a biatch. We really get to see and learn in this episode, not just that her mother, was in league with Pervasat in this current scheme, but was even at the forefront helping Pervasat poison her husband and pre-planning this entire thing for a long, long time. Like, really showing that she is a premeditated, absolute asshat herself, for lack of a better word. So she deserved everything that was coming to her and more. Might even have to say she got lucky with the quick death she got. Same with Mr. Asshat. But again, I guess you can't really take time on such minor characters. Just cut off their heads and move on. But I'm satisfied enough with that, though I would have somewhat liked Rose to sort of cut his head off and not have it be Mordred. But again, of course, I get why she wouldn't. It wouldn't necessarily fit with her character. She's more of a justice type of character, right? She's not one that really decapitates people. That's more of a Shadow's thing. And it is also practical that Mordred just cut the head off her mother, because Rose, even though she, of course, has a lot of issues with her mother due to everything that happened this episode, Rose is not really a character that would ever really have the guts or the heart to execute her mother, right? So that she dies in this way puts the pressure off of Rose and any potential decisions she might have had to make after the fact, after this incident, when she is presumably going to be the new leader of the kingdom. Hopefully as well, Rose can build up her image again, as she has been sort of shunned as this evil princess that has put the kingdom into ruin. But now, after this whole ring activation and seeing the father of Rose and the king have this monologue of how he was before he was poisoned, right? And having his final words spoken to everyone in the capital, she can hopefully start rebuilding her image and, be a loved princess and then queen once again. On that point as well, I did quite like just having that moment with the king having his final word spoken and really seeing him as he was meant to be, when he was not drugged to all hell, right? And actually being coherent and really showing his character that, he was willing to sacrifice everything, even his life, to be able to entrust the future of the kingdom to Rose, and knowing that she would make the right decision, that she would be the correct leader, a just leader moving forward for the kingdom. I did quite like that short thing there, giving him a nice send-off as a character in that way. Also, though, I did absolutely chuckle to myself when Perv is going to open the ring box, and it's like, ah yes, my plan is now complete. Opens the ring box. Huh? Nothing there. Closes it again, and just keeps repeating the line. Yeah, now. Nope, still gone. And just keeps opening and closing it, thinking that eventually the ring will show up. But then realizing, ah shit, it's gone. I lost it? Oh no. I had to pause that part of the episode at least a couple times, because I was just like, god damn it, dude. I can't even with that. But, very funny, very entertaining, just my type of humor. Very, very enjoyable. Luckily, I didn't have coffee at the time, or I would have spit it out. I'm quite sure. Now, what I'm also hoping here, as some final notes for the next episode, is that I really hope we get to see, let's say, a bigger spectacle, like a bigger fight, because all the fights so far in the show have been fairly contained, right? We haven't really seen any big fights with a lot of people from Shadow Garden and other factions. It's always been relatively minor, maybe a couple dozen people, but no like major clashes, right? Not like any sort of armies clashing with each other. But I do hope that in this next episode, the final episode of Season 2 here of Eminence and Shadow, I do hope that we somehow, at least in some section, though of course I get it might be expensive to have big fight scenes like that, I hope they have the budget to have this bigger fight scene, as we've already talked in the last few episodes of a lot of reinforcements, like massive reinforcements being shipped to Oriana by Shadow Garden, by Lambda and these other people in the organization, prepping for like this big conflict, right? So I do hope we actually get to see a lot of the Shadow Garden girls, like all of them really being geared up, all of them getting into the fight, all of them being involved in this climax. Because I do really like seeing all the girls fight and being involved in things, not just having Shadow do most of the hard work, right? So I do hope we get to see that, and also get to see a lot of the Shadow Garden girls fight, because we really haven't seen all the girls fight that much, right? Yeah, we've seen Alpha fight, we've seen Beta fight, we've seen some of the characters, the main Shadow Garden girls, fight somewhat, but most of them we really haven't seen much of at all in any type of a fight scenario or in general. So giving them some screen time next episode, I hope will happen, and I think that would be great. We did get to see Seita, right? Yeah. At least her had like a slight, very quick fight scene at the start of this episode, which was nice. I liked her whole blade under boot thing. But yeah, I do hope we get to see a much bigger spectacle in the end episode if they have the budget and if that is in the story. And having that big clash going on, while at the same time having it be centered around Shadow and Rose and Mordred and them having this showdown. Or maybe just Rose and Mordred having a showdown, and then Cid dealing with the Ragnarok monster. Unless he, of course, one-hit KOs it, and then who knows what happens, Anyhow, though, those are my general thoughts on episode 11 of The Eminence and Shadow. I do realize this video went a bit long, but I hope you sticked with me for the majority of it. What did you think of this episode? Like it, hate it, leave your those thoughts below. Of course, if you enjoyed the video, please remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Greatly appreciate that. I'm also hoping to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. We still have a couple weeks left, well, 3 weeks left almost. So please do sub if you enjoy the content. Really want to hit that milestone. Would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And if you want to watch another video from my channel, click on this one right here. Hope you enjoy it, and I will see you next time. So bye-bye.